You have
But
a go-to card. Like I know, obviously, every matchup's different. But for example, with Magical Stone, a card that you know 90% of times you're siding it out. Do you have a card that you go 90% of the time? This is what I'm siding in Magical Stone spot.
Yeah, Lightning Vortex is like a really insane side deck card because people side in like Fossil Dyna, Vanity's
Vanity's
Fiend,
Fiend.
there's like all these anti-meta monsters, and you just wipe them out. It's pretty simple. And then maybe Book of Moon, depending on the matchup as well. But you just want to like stop their anti cards, and those do a good job at that.
And Lightning Vortex happens to be a discard card, so it fuels Super Rejuvenation. Lightning Vortex is actually crack.
Yeah,
I think it should be sided in every deck. By the way,
it's my favorite card, or like one of my. It's the best side deck card. Anyways.
Yes, it should be sided in every single deck, no question.
I even went ahead and main decked one, and I can go into that later on too. But
okay.
And then sometimes we side out one Pyavers. Like if we're playing against a deck that can like rush us really quick, like just put a lot of pressure, we side out Pyavers just in case we like open 2-pot and then we can't do anything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or we're playing against like a deck that has a lot of grave hate by chance, and we can take pot out.
That leads into the next question. How do you feel about the zombie matchup? They have Book of Life, Bionic, Floaters, in addition to previously mentioned side deck, like cards that would naturally hurt.
Yeah, it was the zombie matchup. I mean, it's not like they can't Book of Life chain to like anything, so that's fine. And
it's always preemptive.
Yeah, the same thing with Soul Release. Like, as long as they're not like Soul Releasing anything like really crucial, like your utility dragons are kind of important in the situational play, like Prime Material, Draco, Clear Vice can be important. But everything else, like as long as your 3 red meds aren't in the grave, you don't really care too much.
What would you consider zombies to be one of your tougher matchups just because of how fast that deck can be? Like the turn that you take to try to set up, and they're just like, okay, I'll take that opportunity to summon Diva and synchro with my Goblin Zombie because they can do a lot of damage really fast.
Yeah,
I was going to ask something similar in that it seems like decks like this, I would feel as though they more so like slower decks like Dandy Warrior, right? Like
slow.
Decks that take time to set up but are good long game, like they're just hoping that you break because otherwise you
yeah.
But like combo decks or fast decks like zombies, they might be decks that actually pose a threat to a deck.
Like Blackwings and zombies can be pretty quick. Well, I should say Vayu Turbo to be specific.
Yeah,
Vayu Turbo can you for 4,000 with one Greffer, like a summon Greffer 4,000. But yeah, I was wondering how you feel about those matchups that are like other fast decks that are already established in the meta.
Yeah, those are probably like the harder matchups just because they can just rush you down really quick before you can get anything going. And then you need a turn to get Super Rejuve going.
Yeah, is that what happened in the finals? You played Blackwings in the finals, right?
Yeah, it was like a Vayu Blackwing mesh. And I think if I just had like a monster, if I drew a monster, because he decked up me and then I could have gotten something going. I kind of made a mistake that final game by setting Treacherous Trap Hole because a couple of turns later I drew Gorz, and he knew Trap Hole was there, so it wasn't like he was going to play into it really.
Yeah,
I just didn't want to get beat down. But anyways,
Gorz is so tricky in this format because come across the same issue where sometimes I'll set something and then I'll draw Gorz after. For example, feel like with me, it's always fucking Solemn Judgment. Solemn Judgment and Gorz for me have this really big hate relationship with each other. Like it's super hateful because I always have Solemn and Gorz together, which is awkward. Or I set Solemn and then I draw Gorz like the very turn after I set Solemn, and it's like, oh god, am I ever like? I'm probably not going to get to drop this Gorz now.
Yeah, it's kind of similar with this deck with because you have Future Fusion that's up, so you have to sometimes you have Gorz and Future Fusion. You have to kind of like, do I want Gorz first and then, or do I just want Future Fusion now? And but
the
aside from that, Gorz is like this insane in this deck.
Yes, because he helps you to OTK them. I like about Gorz in the Dragon Turbo deck though is that when you do what you're supposed to do, which is draw a bunch of cards and get to the end phase, and you have the discard for hand size, you can just discard Gorz if he's like not relevant.
Yeah.
Like if your field is not completely open, you have Future Fusion up. You're like, okay, well this guy's dead, and you just get rid of it.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Or if you find Tragodia too.
Yep, you're like, oh, I don't need this because Tragodia for the most part, is just better. I mean, stealing monsters is pretty insane, especially if somebody summons Absolute Zero against you for some reason, or a Stardust. You're like, oh, thank you.
You can crash into like a Judgment Dragon and then steal it. So
What do you
it's
mean
kind of
crash into a Judgment
like
Dragon?
if they have a Judgment
yeah,
Dragon
yeah.
on the field.
Yeah,
can
summon
just-
Whitestone, crash, take 2900, drop Trag, search out Blue Eyes, discard
Yeah,
Blue Eyes, take.
something
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
so broken. Yeah, Trag is nice.
But to answer the question about like the zombie thing again, just Drago does a really good job against zombies, just because like if they're just like turtling on Pyramid Turtle, you can just crash into it a couple times, and then they don't have anything to summon off it.
Yeah, that's awkward. If you summon Draco at any point, it kind of neuters the deck a lot. Yeah,
and then you can kind of like against like decks that pressure you a lot, you can also just like Lightning Vortex their board. So it's kind of weird. Like they have to rush you down, but then they can play into Trag, Gorz, Lightning Vortex. So it's a little awkward for them too. But
yeah, I was gonna say. So the last question here about OG is, how do you deal, or how do you feel about the Frog Hero Monarch matchup, or just like the Frog Monarch matchup in general? I think the reason why this question is being asked, I have some insight on like what he's actually getting at here. So it can be, I'm not sure how much experience you have with this, but Ryza specifically can be very, very, very detrimental when he makes you top deck like a Red Eyes and you're in kind of a spot where it's just a really bad draw.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's something that you've experienced, or if you feel like the Frog Hero Monarch matchup is one of those matchups that needs any specific attention, or just feels kind of like it can go back and forth, or how, I don't know, how do you feel about that matchup in general?
So if I know I'm playing against like the Frog decks, like with Ryza, Wing Blast, and all that,
Yeah,
I try not to like set anything because that's gonna be like worse than. So I just like discard cards at end phase if I can't get anything going, because I'd rather just get rid of like the trash cards rather than set it and then get stacked on top of my deck. And
yeah, whenever you play, and this is just general knowledge for people who are listening, if you ever play against a Monarch deck in general, the best way to deal with Monarchs is to not commit to the field, because Monarchs is a deck that literally requires that you commit to the field for them to work, except Dastalos, who happens to be, honestly, Dastalos is probably my favorite Monarch at this point. I talk about that fucking card all the time. I love that card. I think Soul Exchange Dastalos is a 2 for 3, and it's so nice when you get to do that, because you usually hit whatever monster you tribute it, a card out their hand, which is unexpected, and then also whatever back row they end up using to get rid of it. Most of the time people end up having to use some kind of back row to deal with it. So it's really cool that it can just like take away so much card advantage. But that Styles is not played really, and
it'd be good against dragons.
Yes, it in a weird way, hitting your hand is definitely the way to deal with the deck. No one plays that style. So if people were playing Monarchs now, like if I were play a Monarch deck, I guess in RBET04, it would probably be playing like triple Vanity's Fiend, triple Thestalos, triple Kaiash, triple Ryza, and then just a bunch of the, just the regular Frog pack. I would completely forget the fucking the hero package. Because as cute as that is, the meta has shifted so much where I think that you're going to see more dragon decks now. Zombies also are just naturally good against the standard hero Frog Monarch deck. Like, it's just really good against that deck because it's slow, and Book of Life gets the really, like, they will Book of Life both your tree ones at some point, or they'll just like, kill you.
That's like the problem with the Monarch decks. They're a little too passive, and then they can't really do a lot in the turn for the most part.
I also think Monarchs have a hard time with Gorz. That's just my experience. Gorz hurts Monarchs than any other deck. Like, when they attack, when they're doing one Monarch per turn, and you're just like drop Gorz on a Monarch attack, and you get a 2400 token, it's so hard for that deck to deal with that.
One thing, I remember struggling against Frog's like the frog guy. If you guys don't know, the guy that topped the last ribbit with the Frog Hero deck.
Mm-hmm.
He got like second. He used to play Diva Frog Monarch, and he was able to make the X-Saber Urbellum, the level 7 guy, and that's really good against this deck because I'm not putting anything on the field, and then he just summons that, and then he just keeps on like spinning stuff to the top of my deck.
Yeah, he keeps your hand exactly the same.
Yeah, so I just lose if I don't have like Trag or Gorz.
You have to commit, and that puts you right into a Monarch.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you put something on the field now to not get hit by Urbellum, and now you get Caius. Now you get Ryzen.
That's one thing when I originally built this deck, it was kind of like the go against where, you know, Raiko, Caius.
Hey guys, if you like this clip, we have full video versions of our podcast episodes available on the IMNerd Patreon, as well as exclusive content.
If you'd like to listen to our full podcast episodes or find us on any other social media platforms, you can do so by clicking the link tree below.